Marcus, how's your trade going?
Sean, how much coins did you have left after the Miami conference?
Oh, I have zero coins left. I lost them all in a big tragic boating accident. I also seem to lost my voice after being in Miami. Too much yelling. There's so many people out there. You're just having a normal conversation and you have to yell. I think everyone lost their voice after the first day.
Yeah, that's okay, man. We forgive you. You've been on a long flight also, so jet lagged, hammered by the conference, but of course we need to hear the stories, man. So happy you called in. So let's do this.
Let's do it. Yep. So everyone, you know the show, Bitcoiner's Guide. We take you to the top of the Bitcoin rabbit hole where we try to talk about Bitcoin. We keep it Bitcoin only. We let you know about the scams that are going on, but really we don't even try to focus too much on those scams. We just try to keep it Bitcoin only, help you understand what Bitcoin is, why it solves so many problems, and what it does. We're your hosts. I'm Big Sean Harris, Plan Marcus, giving you a little timestamp and price stamp. Right now, it is currently 10:43 p.m. and I'm in the wonderful city of Paris, France. That's right. I don't know how I got here. I flew out straight out of Miami, came to Paris. I'm spending a few days out here with some friends. The current Bitcoin price, it is going down, which means cheaper coin. The current price is 40,000 and some change, down about 7.51% in the last 24 hours. I don't know why I said it like that. Sound like an English newsman. So today's topics, we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna talk a little bit about the Memetic warfare panel that Chairforce Greg Zadge from the Meme Factory and myself did, along with the fellas from Simply Bitcoin, Nico and Phil, and the great American Hodl. He was moderator. I have a few stories from the conference that we'll talk about, and we'll talk about some other things too. Samson Mow made some announcements. I think he overhyped them a little bit. We'll get into that. Jack Mallers had some big announcements, and also Tesla Block on Blockstream has some things going on, some weird things going on in China, but that's usual. So let's get into it. All right, starting out, we had the Memetic warfare, and that was a really cool panel that we got to do. It was the first time that I got to speak at Bitcoin conference, and after I was talking to Joe Rogers, who he works with Bitcoin Magazine, and he was like, "Oh, well, now you can put that on your resume," and I was like, "Joe, I play basketball. That doesn't help me out with my resume." But
You have no idea that your resume is pivoting towards Bitcoin, Sean. And obviously, you won't be able to play basketball forever. I mean, you're probably like over the hill already. No, I'm joking.
yeah, I'm gonna be playing for a long time. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, what were you saying?
There is life after basketball. So he has a point. And I think it's pretty funny, right? Because I think it was just last year when we were watching the conference, we were kind of like memeing it in the chat, like, oh, we're going to make it onto the conference podium. And well, here you
Yeah,
go. A year later already, Sean sitting on the podium with Chairforce and Greg
yeah,
and American Huddle
yeah. It was a
and the
good
guys
time.
from Simply Bitcoin. Yeah.
It was good, and dude, the more I think about it, the more that I just keep thinking that Bitcoiners, and I'm not trying to toot our own horns, but we do. It's the don't trust verify. I think the don't trust verify is kind of innate in a lot of Bitcoiners, even before they ever heard about Bitcoin, because a lot of Bitcoiners just have like another gear. And it seems to me like a lot of the altcoiners, which there were quite a few altcoiners at the conference, they just haven't done their homework. And I don't know if that makes you not as smart, or if you're smarter if you're a Bitcoiner. I have no idea. But there's a lot of noobs who are kind of in that crypto area. We've been there before, right? We've been down that road of of, okay, I got to get my diversified crypto portfolio. And then one day you figure out that it's all just a VC scam, a venture capital scam. They try to pump a coin every 2 months, telling you it's the next Bitcoin, and then they run away with your gains. You think you can trade, and then you realize that you're the one that the VCs are trading against. And when you realize that, then you go, what am I doing trading? They're trading, and then they're taking my money and they're putting the profits in Bitcoin. So why don't I just beat them to it and put my savings all in Bitcoin?
Yeah, so if you're at the conference, like, how did you notice there was a lot of shitcoiners there? Obviously, we saw a lot of speeches by different like crypto exchanges. They obviously have an incentive to talk about crypto, not Bitcoin. If you're looking at the audience or people you've spoken to, what would you say the mix was?
I would say, I mean, maybe I could be way off, but it kind of felt like, well, there were some times where there would be some altcoins mentioned, and they would get booed, whoever was saying them, or if they would say Web3, it would get booed, which is really funny to watch, especially because if you see someone who's used to being a celebrity or who has these titles in life, and they're used to being honored and respected and revered, and then they come up on stage and they mention something, and then they get booed, and they're not used to that. It happened last year with Floyd Mayweather. He came on stage,
Oh yeah,
and so these
Floyd
guys,
will
they're
be
just,
all right. Floyd will be all right.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, maybe he will, but he hasn't done his homework. And so I think the way you could tell that there were a lot of altcoiners was me. I was just having conversations. I was talking to a lot of people, and a lot of people, and you'd see people wearing, different shirts that weren't Bitcoin, that were some altcoin. But I mean, just a lot of people still, they still have a lot of questions. So, and I think they're genuine questions too. Most of the time, that it's people that have very genuine questions. I try to keep it. I mean, you know how I am. Sometimes, like, yeah, if someone's throwing BS at me, okay, I'm gonna throw some BS right back. But if most of the time, people are genuine with their questions. They're new to what's going on, so I try to be patient with them. I try to ask them questions about their own life and figure out, like, how can I help them out and get it from their viewpoint the best. I remember we even had this one lady. She was an Uber driver from Haiti, and she said, she's like, I moved to the United States because there's just more, a lot more opportunity here. And then she heard us talking about Bitcoin, and so we started talking about Bitcoin, and then she's like, oh, well, I have I can't even remember. She said some altcoin. I don't even remember what it was. She said she had some altcoin, and we were with a few of us Bitcoiners. And I just said, look, would you ever go back to Haiti? And she said, no, I wouldn't ever go back. And because she was asking us about one altcoin, and then she's like, and my friend told me about this other altcoin it's gonna go up. And so I was just like, look, Bitcoin in this instance is, and I'm not like a United States maximalist, but I'm just saying, look, Bitcoin is the United States to you because this is the best opportunity, and there's no second best. And stealing Michael Saylor's words, like, I was like, your altcoin number one is Haiti, your altcoin number two is Haiti, and hopefully Haiti, I would love it if Haiti decided to adopt a Bitcoin standard and take a step ahead of the United States. But just like I was saying, I try to relate Bitcoin back to people's lives, and so they can understand it. If I go
It's
all
it's so funny,
financial,
right?
yeah,
Because when I was in Miami too, it's like I talked to the Uber driver,
yeah,
I talked to the person cleaning the hotel room, I talked to the guy at the front desk all about Bitcoin. It seems like I just can't, it's like it's almost automatic. And now I hear you talking about it. You've been talking to the Uber driver as well.
yeah,
Gotta wonder if we're some kind of weirdos.
yeah, yeah. And some people are like, man, you guys are a cult or whatever. But then you just remember the real cult is fiat currency, and what fiat currency, what it does, and how it steals silently from people. And Bitcoin gives people their time back. So I think you know, once you see it, it's very hard to unsee unless you're a scammer. And then the scammers are okay with unseeing whatever they want to unsee.
Right. But you've kind of pivoted away a little bit from the Bitcoin conference. I'm still kind of curious about that, obviously, because yeah, we've I mean, we can all go back to the YouTube and we can watch back the talks, and you know, I definitely recommend people to play back the Memetic warfare on which you were sitting. But what was it like backstage? I mean, who did you meet? Did you meet a lot of like Bitcoin people you were looking forward to meet? Were there people coming at you? Were the parties any good? What happened?
Yeah, I think, you know, there was, what was interesting was there were actually quite a few. They called them satellite events, or basically like you know, parties after the conference that weren't affiliated with the conference. I didn't really know about any of them, but then people come up to me like, "Oh, come to, you know, come to this thing or come to that thing." And so, but what I wanted to do was just hang out with some plebs, and see what's going on, talk to people, get new ideas, and then like try to I want to help push Bitcoin only. I think that's something that that like after meeting a lot of plebs, is like, I think pushing Bitcoin only is like the push that I think I can help out a lot in. And so, but yeah, like it was a lot of fun backstage. uh Bitcoiner movie, he's on Twitter. He wanted to film us before we got on stage, and so he came in and we were just cracking jokes. Greg is the life of the party, and dude's just cracking jokes left and right. Nico
So
and
he
Phil.
was actually signing potatoes after the panel, right?
Yeah, and so we
How much
finished.
potatoes did he sign?
He signed at least a whole sack of potatoes, at least one whole sack. And the guys from Bitcoin Kindergarten came through, you know, Weinekiss and Optimus,
Yeah.
Fields, and a lot of the guys, Leron. A lot of those dudes came through, and they bought like 10 sacks of potatoes, put them on the stage before we got up there, and then everyone had like 2 sacks of potatoes sitting right next to them when we got up. And
Goodness.
the Bitcoiner movie was in there filming Greg after the
Well, when
panel.
you guys were standing at the table, I saw it like in some conference hall. You guys were the two of you at a table
Yes, exactly. And
with a camera on you.
yeah, yeah, we had the camera on us, and because there was a camera on us, then and there was a microphone, and then people started coming up like, "Well, what are you guys doing?" And you know, like, "Oh, Greg's just signing potatoes," and like, "Well, what does this have to do with Bitcoin?" You know? And that's just like where it's hard to explain it. It's like, well, obviously has nothing really to do with Bitcoin, but it's just part of the memes. And sometimes the memes are there to educate, and sometimes they're there to throw you off a scent, and sometimes they're just to have fun, you know, because like we aren't the guys in the suits and the ties. We aren't these guys that they're trying to use all these big words. We're the guys just out here having fun. We're stacking Bitcoin. We're making life. We're making life, like we're just trying to enjoy life. And I think that is one of the biggest things about Bitcoiners is we're trying to get off the hamster wheel that you can have in corporate America or corporate whatever, wherever country you live in, and get off that hamster wheel. Just be able to stack sats, get your time back, be able to spend time with your family and the ones you love, and doing things that you love instead of just working for your retirement. And so, you know, like one of the old things that Robert Kiyosaki used to always say, he said that he said rich people, they don't work for money. And so I think that's something that's kind of always stuck with me after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And you know, rich people, they like, normally it's the people that work for the rich people that work for money. But normally rich people, they have money working for them, or they start a business, you know. And so it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting to flip that.
Yeah. For me, it's really that. just knowing that your money is going to be good into the future and it's not going to, it gives so much peace of mind knowing that that money or that share of Bitcoin is just going to stay there. Nobody's going to be able to dilute it, and if you can add to it, great, but it's gonna appreciate. So it gives you time. It gives you time to think about the things that are important to you, to spend time on the things that are important to you, and exactly as you say, not work for money, which is
Mhm.
just very which vaporizes really quickly.
Yeah.
So you kind of get stuck on this hamster wheel that will never really seem to end. And what is your pension going to be worth by the time you're 60 or 65 or 70 or whatever age it is that you get to go on retirement? What kind of a small apartment will you have to buy then? It just kind of puts everything at ease. And it definitely changes your outlook, gives hope, and makes you want to think about, hey, what is it you really want to do? That's why I think also Bitcoiners are so much against like scammy stuff. It's like
Yeah.
you gotta really provide something of value and not just shill some next scam to try and get people to spend their money on something they don't need, or which is just underperforming. Yeah, that's anyway.
Yeah.
I'm kind of
It
getting
was
lost there,
no,
but
but it,
let's get back, because I
yeah.
want to hear the story. Before we went live, you were telling me that there was this story about this VC guy came up to you guys when you guys were
Yeah.
like at a club or something.
Yeah, well, first of all, it was just great being able to hang out with Greg and Greg's wife and Chairforce. I mean, those are like Greg and Chairforce and all the guys in the meme factory are guys that we've been talking, it feels like for years now. I don't even know how long it's been, but maybe 2 years that we've been just talking and memeing. And so those are some of the closest guys that I've gotten to in Bitcoin. But it was, and so when I go to the conference, I'm like, I want to hang out with some friends that I don't get to hang out with, like Chairforce and Greg. And then it was cool also getting to hang out and meet other people along the way. And like now that we're doing some more stuff, it's kind of cool how you can kind of start out in Bitcoin as just like this random guy, and then all of a sudden like you make a couple memes or you contribute in whatever way you contribute, and then people just give respect. They don't give respect because of oh, this guy's a PhD or he's a politician or he's got a ton of money or a ton of Bitcoin. It's just like, no, if you have good ideas, um, and that's what I think that's what's so cool about Bitcoin is it's always like the best idea wins, and people who have good ideas, then it just becomes like it's not like anyone's competing with anyone. I need to have better ideas than you. It's like, no, like everyone can have great ideas and push in their own way. But yeah, Marty's Al and I, after it was the last night, and and Marty's Al's a cool dude, and we went to this bar on Ocean Drive, and we were just hanging out over there, and it was getting close for the bar to shut down, and this altcoiner VC guy comes up to us. He was from London, so I mean, no surprise there. Obviously, RD and MTC, BTC, those guys are always shilling altcoins anyway. I'm just
No,
like,
no, no, no.
I'm just joking. They're never doing that. They need to straighten this guy out, is what they need to do. And so
All right, so it was a British guy. It was a British guy. Like, how old would you say he was?
he's probably like 30 years old, maybe
Okay.
30, 35. And he comes up to us
So did
and
he like talk to you in like this authoritarian voice? Like how the British are always like a little higher than you because they speak better English.
yeah, he didn't really like, I mean, they just have that good accent, right? And so I don't think he was what he did with, well, we first
Proper
bought us
English.
some drinks, right? And and I think that's like obvious, which is a nice gesture. And then he sits down and he starts saying like, oh, you know, like it's
Right, but
all
wait,
about it's all
why did he want to buy you drinks? I mean,
he
did
was
he
like
know you
going
guys were?
around, he was going around and like just shilling his altcoins, just shilling his altcoins to whoever would listen, really. And which was really weird, honestly. And so because at that point, like we had gone to a couple of days of conference, and I love talking about Bitcoin, but sometimes, like you need to just relax too and just, okay, like there's other things too I can talk about, which uh which I know comes as a surprise to many, because I'm always asking, what do you talk about on your first date with a girl besides Bitcoin? But getting back to the story, so this guy is talking to us, and he's like, yeah, I used to be a maxi, and I used to buy, stack and buy Bitcoin. And he's like, but F Bitcoin, it's all about the altcoins. And I'm like, dude, you were never a maxi, first of all, with that mentality. And then second of all, then he goes, yeah, but then I created my own NFT business. I made a few million. It just doing the humble brag, trying to get us to be like, oh wow, this guy's, he's super smart, and we need to hear his advice because he's made a few $1,000,000. And then he goes, and that's how I figured out how to get access to the seed rounds on altcoins. And that's what I do. And he's like, I never buy spot price for any altcoin. He's like, I just buy the seed rounds. And I was like, so you buy pre-mines, you know? And Marty, Sal, and I were just we were just pushing back. And I didn't want to get too crazy. I probably should have gone harder on him. But I just kind of was like, what's the difference between you and a central banker? Like you just come in and you just buy up these bags, and then you shill them to people as the next Bitcoin, and then you dump on everybody on retail. Like you're
Right.
like the prop. He's like the
But then when you
definition.
tell them that, Sean, then they just look at you like, but don't you want to make money? I
Exactly.
mean,
That's
it's all
exactly
about fiat gains, dude. Sick gains. It's like,
exactly.
no, it's Bitcoin. Sure, it's like a nice number goes up. It draws people in, but Bitcoin is so much more than just like getting rich. I mean, it's just displacing the whole current fiat system. The distortion and the manipulation and free and open access to anyone with the internet. It's leveling the playing field. Store of value for anyone through time. I can go on and on, but anyway, yeah. Sorry, I had to cut you off.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly. I mean, you nailed it right on the head. That's exactly what he told us. He was like, "Yeah, but no one's telling them that they have to buy." And I'm like, "You're the one telling them, right? You're the one
Literally.
marketing to them that it's the next Bitcoin." He goes, "Well, we don't do that." And I'm like, "Well, you use some type of marketing strategy, whatever it may be, to lure in people who the only reason they buy what you're selling is because they've heard somewhere, someplace, that the coin's going to go up, and they don't know, they haven't studied what money is, they haven't studied about the Fed, they haven't studied about the history of gold, sound money, hard money. They don't understand those things. And
There's
so,
literally
yeah,
no use case or there's no problem being solved, right? It's just about
nothing.
this thing is going to pump and they'll give you a reason why it's going to pump or
Yeah.
why their shitcoin is smarter than the other one or what's that angle that's going to make it pump. There's no ethics involved. It's just about, like trying to give you this, like what he did. So I get in on the seed round. So that's his edge, right? So now he's got you believing that he has some early access before anybody else has it. So that's all the only reason why
Yeah.
anybody would buy that thing, right? Just so you can get in before others can get in, and then you can like dump it on the others when they want to buy it. That is literally the shitcoin market defined. Like,
Right there. He did.
yeah,
And I'm like, this. And when he left, because I was like, we are his worst nightmare, right? Like when he comes down and sits down, he wants to talk to people who know nothing. When he comes down and he talks to people who've done their homework, that's his worst nightmare. And that's the worst nightmare of a central banker. I mean, I remember and of any VC guy like Chamath. I remember listening to him a year ago or so, and he was talking to that one guy named Jason, not Jason Williams, but I think he just goes by Jason. And they have this podcast that they do, and Chamath was saying like, I never buy spot. You know, he's like, I only buy at a discount. And I didn't understand it fully, but I'm like, oh, the dude's buying pre-mines. Like he has access to buy pre-mines and then to shill those coins, and they'll give him a percentage of those pre-mines if he shills the coins, which inevitably, because of his name, people will buy those coins just because it's Chamath. And so you're literally buying something, shilling it to your fans, and then watching them get rug pulled. Like that is the epitome of fiat clown world and what's going on. And these guys are the issue.
Yeah. All right. Well, so how did it end? I mean, did he like leave and did he want like his drinks back?
Marty Zal just drank his drinks and then he ended up leaving. So yeah, you know what? At least we one upped him right there. Got his
All
drinks
right.
and then he left.
All right. So coming back to the conference. I mean, last year Najib Bouquet was the big news, and obviously very hard to top. You know, when it was like First Nation state adopting. I guess this year's conference, the big highlight of the show was Jack Mahler's, right? Jack Mahler's. Is that way how you experienced it as well? Were you there in the room when he was there?
Yeah. I was there for Jack Mallers, and yeah, I think his was definitely the highlight of the whole conference. And he, you know, the integration of Lightning into these point of source sales at storefronts. I don't think it's there fully yet with Shopify. That's there, but I think it just totally changes the game of like you can mine Bitcoin, take that Bitcoin you've mined, and then use it as a medium of exchange to buy things, to buy groceries, to buy food, to buy whatever you want to buy at a ton of different places. And what were your thoughts? I kind of want to know, you know, from your perspective, someone who wasn't there, like what was your thoughts, and then maybe I'll dive in a little bit to my thoughts as someone who saw it with a lot of people there too.
Yeah, well, I was a little bit bummed that I wasn't there, you know, and
Yeah,
obviously when you turn on Twitter and everybody's there and you're not there, you get like this massive FOMO. So I was
yeah,
happy you were there and I get to call you and I get to send you a little message and stuff. But to
yeah,
be honest, I kind of just like ignored it a little bit. And you know, like at the end of the day, I kind of watched what most people were talking about and then decided to go watch back some of the stuff that was being tweeted out. So I watched the Peter Thiel one. I watched Jack Mahler's, obviously. I watched Samson Mow on nation state adoption. But coming back to Jack Mahler's, right? So let's try and like explain it a little bit, because what I found was interesting is that when you look at nation state adoption with El Salvador, he was really talking about, you know, the remittances, people sending back money. There's a lot of money being lost there to Western Union. When it comes to point of sale, you have merchants or store owners, and whether they have a physical brick and mortar shop or whether they have an online shop, you always need some kind of payments processor in place that will, so that you're able to swipe cards, that people can pay with their favorite means of payments, whether it's PayPal, Cash App, or credit card, or cash, or whatever. Cash, obviously, you don't need a payment provider, but for all the other ones, you do. And I have a web shop as well. And these guys take a lot of money, right? I mean, besides like a fixed cost every month, I have to also pay like a percentage of my turnover.
yeah,
So basically, every time somebody swipes or pays online, whether it's in the store or online, the payment provider will take anywhere from like 1.5 to sometimes even 5%. So I believe Jack Mollers was talking about like 3% on average. So
mm,
this is a cost that people or merchants can now get rid of by using the Bitcoin rails. Obviously, this is not something new, right? The only thing that's new is that Jack Mahler's actually partnered with like the likes of Shopify And he named two other big payment providers that I hadn't heard of before, but those were like the top six in the US, I believe that they were. So for
I
some
think it
kind of
was the
reason,
number. I think it was the number one in the U.S. and it has like
oh,
one sixth of like all storefronts. I think was kind of how he worded
oh,
it.
that's how I came to the six. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thanks for correcting me. So anyway, huge payment provider with some massive, brand household names on the list that use that stuff. So that is a big breakthrough that you can now use that. My big question is why is it that there's something happening under the hood, because in the US you get a capital gains when you spend your Bitcoin, right? So every
Mm.
time you convert your Bitcoin into cash or into something else, it's a taxable event, etc. So there's something going on under the hood so that that they can use Bitcoin as a payment rails, where Bitcoin gets swapped and sent and switched to dollars, or it stays in Bitcoin, right? Because he demonstrated three different things or three different ways you could use it. Um, so yeah, those were kind of my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like what you're saying. And I look at Jack Mallers as a doer. This dude, he grinds in the dark and boom, then he comes on the scene and he's just putting out something new every year. And it seems like even more than every year. But what I like about this is not only is he just changing the idea of what Bitcoin can be, he's changing about what it is right now. Because I think with Saylor, he has kind of had that idea of Bitcoin is the store of value. You can hold Bitcoin for 100 years.
Digital asset. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. You buy it and you hold it for 100 years, which is so true. But Bitcoin is money, and money is not just a store of value, but it's also a medium of exchange and a unit of account. And so by doing this, he's just pushing that narrative forward of Bitcoin being money. And I think that's what's so important is that for it to be money, we have to have it as a medium of exchange. And as it becomes a medium of exchange, then more people will understand that it is money. Because I think the biggest thing that happens to me is when I talk to people about what is Bitcoin and what is money, they always say, well, where can you spend it? Right. That's like one of the biggest things that they'll say. You can't spend it anywhere. And so then you got to go, well, money is, there's three parts of money. And you go over that same spiel that I just said. And so I think that's like the issue is, okay,
Yeah.
is Bitcoin money? And kind of like Uber, what happened with Uber, and I know it's different, but as more, because Uber, you had the taxis that were trying to lobby and not make Uber, get Uber banned, but there was too many people that were using Uber, and that network effect just grew because the
The
adoption.
benefit was just too great, right? When the
Exactly.
benefit is so obvious, and so then everybody's incentivized to want to use that new system because it's so much more efficient. And then you can like try to hold it back, but
Right.
it will find its way. So I definitely agree there, Sean. I think the real benefit there is obviously that the Bitcoin network is just it settles instantly or in 10 minutes. With on the Lightning, it's practically instant.
Yes.
Sorry, on the Lightning network, it's practically instantly. And you're cutting out all these middlemen that are just leeching off your turnover, right? For not doing anything. They're literally
Nothing.
just like taking 3% of your turnover. Well, just a fixed monthly cost would probably just cut it as well. But just the fact that everybody offers a percentage of your turnover, I always experienced it as robbery, right? Like, why it doesn't make sense to have to take a percentage of my turnover because the costs are the same to you. But so it's real obvious to want to cut that out. And 3% might not sound like a lot, but for merchants, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
That could be the
So
difference. That could be the difference of making a profit or having a net loss on your books. Like could be a big 3% could be a huge difference to your company.
yeah,
Yeah, and I just think as more companies are incentivized, and they'll see the incentives because they'll see the bottom line profits they're going to get from using the Lightning Network, as they see those incentives, then they're going to lobby for Bitcoin to be a legal tender and to not have to pay capital gains on it. And I think that's what's really cool. Because, and what's even cooler is like you hop in and out of the Bitcoin network. You start with dollars, you hop on Bitcoin, you hop off Bitcoin, and you pay in dollars. So I think that's super cool. You're just using the payment rails of Bitcoin, or you hop in dollars, you hop on to Bitcoin, you get to the point of sale, you hop off on euros. I think that's cool. So,
and another nice side effect of it is as well is that it's like giving privacy back, at least some privacy back to the consumer as well, because now you can pay from like your Lightning wallet behind Tor, just encrypted, or from an anonymous or pseudonymous wallet. You can pay. There's no records being stored about your credit card number and your name, and a lot of these companies, they sell all these records back and forth to each other to enrich databases. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
And you kind of push back on that as well. And I kind of didn't see it because it's not like one or the other. The way he demonstrated it is that, as a consumer, you can now walk into one of those stores and you could be like, look, I would like to pay with Lightning, with my own Lightning wallet. I mean, you can still pay with your credit card, it's just you have the option now to pay with Lightning. Now, what will be the incentive for the store owner? He would prefer you to pay in Lightning if it means that he's going to have like 3% less fees, right? So if you can he's going to try to come up with ways to incentivize his consumers to start paying more with Lightning. So, this is just the whole game theory behind Bitcoin. The way I see it is like it slowly but surely incentivizes everybody to just support it. So what I can see happening is, for instance, a store owner offering people a small discount if they're willing to pay with Lightning. Just how you would get a discount if you pay in cash, or it's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, and then
exciting stuff. It'll take a while to land for people to really see it. I watched it with my wife. She was like, "Oh, well, it's for merchants, not for me." So she was kind of like not that interested. But I think it's bigger than a lot of people imagine.
Yeah, and if it's just the same thing, right? Like when merchants have to pay more taxes, and and a lot of politicians say, oh, well, the merchants are going to pay they'll never pass those taxes and those bills on to the customers. It's like that's what they always do. If the merchants have to pay more taxes, then prices go up. And so it's the same thing. If they can get if they can get a discount, maybe just like what you're saying, right? Okay, well, you get a 0.5% discount if you pay on Lightning. And so that is a benefit for the consumers. And yeah, it might seem small, whatever, but that those things add up. And enough people, especially if as we're heading into higher inflation, which the White House is calling, the Putin price pump or whatever, which is, it's not Putin's fault that the United States and the Federal Reserve have had used bad monetary policy for the past 5 decades.
They printed 40% of all the money in the past 2 years, but
Putin's fault, right? It's Putin's fault, right? It's like no one can take blame, and there's no personal responsibility. And so as inflation is soaring and is going higher, and a lot of people think, oh, inflation peaked in February, it's going to peak now. I'm not one to say that it's going to peak now. I don't see why it can't keep going how it's going and continue to move up aggressively. And so as inflation continues to move higher and higher, if you can get back 0.5% or 1% by using the Lightning Network, you're going to use it. You're going to do everything you can to spend less money and find discounts wherever you can, because money is going to become tighter, right? You're not going to have as much money to spend. So things like this can make a big difference into adoption of Bitcoin.
Yeah. And this is not even assuming that Bitcoin is being held as an asset and that it's going to appreciate in time. It's just purely the benefit you gain from using this open and free monetary network.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So one other thing that I wanted to touch on, was Samson Mow's announcements, and I just wanted to kind of go over those. There were three things that he announced. Uh, One that I really liked. The other two were so-so. He announced the city of Prospera in the island of Rotan, Honduras. They announced Bitcoin as legal tender in their city. And then they also announced that any province of Honduras could issue a Bitcoin bond through their city. So I thought that was kind of cool. Uh, I don't know how much is going to be done. They were using words like you get a security token back. So we'll see if they try to use like some altcoin or create some altcoin out of the city. I hope not. I hope they keep it Bitcoin only. I thought that was kind of so-so news. What I really liked was the second piece of information. He said that the island of Madeira in Portugal became the first Bitcoin island as they announced Bitcoin as legal tender on the island. I thought that was cool because an island is just it's its own autonomous thing, and obviously yeah, it's under the purview of Portugal, but I thought it was just really cool how an island is making this move to have Bitcoin as legal tender, and it seems like they're on board and they get it. The other thing that he announced, which I thought was so was that there's a congresswoman from Mexico, and she announced that she's going to petition the president of Mexico to pass a Bitcoin law like El Salvador, and to do it in Mexico. So I thought that was like something that we kind of already thought was in the mix in Mexico. So I thought that was just kind of so news. Now, if something comes from that, I think that would be huge. But it's obvious, Samson Mow's doing his part. He's helping nations, and I think all of us, have a chance. We have no idea who's listening to us, who's connected to someone that may be in a position to help a struggling nation, or even a powerful nation, or a struggling company, or a powerful company, or a struggling family, or powerful family. So that we can always do our part and spread that. What were your thoughts on that, on what Samson had to say, or maybe I kind of touched around it all?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm a big fan of Samson Mow, and
Yeah,
he does so many things, and he's done so much things. He's like a really smart guy. He worked for Blockstream before that, and I believe he was already into gaming and coding, and he's obviously a very good entrepreneur, very smart, very bright, can cut right through the noise, and he's doing a lot of good work out there. And he decided to focus most of his time now on nation state adoption, which is obviously something that spiraled from what happened last year with him coming in the news a lot with Najib Bukele. And the way I look at it is, it may seem like things are going slow, but it was only a year ago, less than a year ago, that Bukele announced El Salvador was going to adopt legal tender. He got that done within 3 to 4 months, which is insane. It's
amazing, right?
just, there is no other country that can do that, unless
Yeah,
you're some tiny island somewhere. I
right.
mean, it just seems preposterous, right, to be able to
Yeah,
do that quickly, especially if you know how politics work and how slow things can be. So what I'm just seeing right now is that all, because we've also forgot to mention Lugano in Switzerland, which is also a
yeah,
city or a small province that also made a de facto legal tender. So what we're seeing happening, dominoes falling, like you had the first racer that crossed the line, and now the peloton is starting to follow. We're seeing like the first runner-ups crossing the line, and more countries are looking at this. So yeah, the world has been woken up, and there's politicians all over the world starting to realize this. People within their country's borders are calling their senators and their local politicians like, yo, we're going to get left behind. You got to get into this. And
mm,
obviously they will have to go through this rabbit hole learning curve, and they're going to end up adopting shit coins and talking blockchain, and maybe issuing their own token for their country. So it's going to be a long and messy road, but I just think that we're going to be hearing a lot more of this kind of stuff from a lot of different nations. People are going to use this in party politics. We can see it in Canada. with Pierre. I forgot his last name. It's kind
Yeah,
of difficult last name, but
Olivier. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his last
Polivier.
name.
That's it,
Yeah.
Pierre Polivier. You know, he's announcing that if he runs, if he's going to be president, that you can like Bitcoin payments will not be taxed. You know, these kind of lines you start seeing coming. So yeah, it's just politicians. You know, nation state level people are waking up to it, and again, it seems slow, but this just takes time. You know, I mean, it took us a couple of, if I can only look at myself, and I hear Michael Saylor as well saying you need to study at least 1,000 hours before you get it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be, but it's happening. That's the cool thing I'm seeing. I'm just constantly looking for like these markers that tell me that Bitcoin is still on this adoption path. And yeah, these are clear markers of more and more countries, and Samson seems to be a busy guy. He tweeted out the other day that he had to go back to Canada because he didn't have any more room in his passport for the stamp. So he's flying all over the place. So that's a good sign to me. And
Yeah.
it'll take a while. I'd say another year or 2 or 3 before like a lot of countries will have this properly in place. Because first of all, yeah, there needs to be like a draft motion, or somebody needs to hand in a proposal. Then all kind of people in the house need to look at it. Legal needs to look at it. It needs to be tested. Then it needs to go through all kind of voting procedures. Then it needs to be rolled out, right? So that's not something that can go extremely fast, in my opinion, but it's happening. So
Yeah, I think
bullish, absolutely bullish. Yeah.
I'm bullish too, and I agree with Samson Mow. Like I think he always says, nation state adoption is never going to happen the same way for two different nation states until it's just like straight up FOMO time, and then it will. But at the
Yeah.
beginning, it'll be different, and it's just like with us. You were orange pilled different than I was, different than whoever else was. Everyone else was orange pilled differently, and it has to do with what affects us personally, and then how does Bitcoin fit into our viewpoints and into our mindset.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same way. Each of us have people that we're talking to, and it just seems like every day orange pilling gets a little bit easier because the world gets more clowns and more clown news, and Bitcoin is just this stream of truth. And so as there's more lies and more things that are coming out, it's just easier to orange pill people because people are starting to open up their eyes and open their minds up to, maybe my government isn't telling me the full truth. Maybe they're telling me everything's okay just to protect their narrative, and they want me to vote for them, and all they care about are their votes or their money, and maybe they don't actually care about me as much as I care about me. And I can be freer with something like Bitcoin, or with Bitcoin. And so I think this is opening up a lot of people's eyes, and it's getting easier to talk to people about Bitcoin and how it can help them. So uh, it just makes sense. The message is spreading fast, and that's kind of what we were talking about on that memetic warfare, or memetic warfare, uh, is the message is spreading. So
Yeah.
it's up
And
to us to keep spreading it as fast as we can before everything tumbles.
yeah, absolutely. And to add to it, like it is becoming easier, and that's why I subscribe so much to this slowly, then suddenly narrative.
Yeah.
It's because imagine being like a minister, whether it's the minister of finance or you're the prime minister or whatever, and you have to, you know, you're taking on a huge risk proposing this in your country, right? I mean, all you've got to point to is El Salvador and maybe now also Madeira and some small island off the coast of Honduras, right? I mean, it's not like it's so you're putting yourself out there. It's like career risk, all that kind of stuff. So you have to be
Yeah.
pretty ballsy to come out with. But as more and more people come in, it just this Lindy effect, right? It becomes more normalized, more standardized. People don't see it as a big shocker anymore. People see that actually works, that there's benefits to it. So it becomes easier and easier and more normal to do it. And then all of a sudden you're going to be facing career risk if you don't do it, right? So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely see it as like a slow build up towards that inflection point where we just like go rapid. When that will be, who knows? Probably a couple of years out still, but I feel like we're creeping up to that inflection point. So it's, I love thinking about that because yeah, and also this whole ETF thing, right? Just to
Yeah.
jump the gun a little bit, I don't know. I saw some tweets going around on Twitter today that there was some survey amongst investors, and 75% of those surveyed investors said they would invest or advise their clients to invest in Bitcoin if there was an ETF.
Wow.
75%. So can you imagine? So now there's people on Twitter saying, oh, that's why we need the ETF, it's holding the price down. Other people are saying, well, we don't need an ETF because we're just going to treat it like gold. And now we're going to get all these big Wall Street investors coming in. Well, it's the little guy and the poor countries, they should still benefit before these ETFs. So I guess it depends the way you look at it, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But there's some big stuff on the horizon.
Yeah, there's just a ton of things going on. So that leads us to the price talk. We're sitting at 40,000. Price just recently dipped under 40,000, went to like 39. So, in the words of the great Winekiss, win moon, Marcus, win moon.
Moon soon. No, I don't know, dude. Look, it's like it's like all these lame. Like
Few.
to me, it's really sweet and sour, right? Because when the price is like down like this, it just really reminds me of like 2018, 2019, when you're just
Yeah.
like, oh, you can tell your family and your friends like just stack sats, like this is an opportunity. We're still like way below 100K, it's like, I mean, it's really not if we're gonna hit 100K, it's just when, and beyond. It's gonna not even if we're gonna hit $1 million, it's just when. So yeah, when the price gets this low, honestly, I get excited, and I have like these app groups with like friends and family, and I feed them regularly a little bit of Bitcoin news and
Yeah.
content because it's not one touch point that will get them across the line. It's so much things and levels they need to, see where it fits. So yeah, at these kind of times, yeah, I'm very active in those groups, trying to tell people, look, DCA, and you're not going to regret it long term. That's
Yeah.
that's my feeling. Yeah.
To me, it feels like it does feel like that 8, 9, 10K area that we were dealing with in like 2019. And it would maybe it would pump up a little bit, then it'll go back down, and it'll pump up, and then it'll go back down below 10K, and then it'll go above 10K, and then Hodl would say the price floor is set. We're never below 10K ever again. And then boom, it go below 10K in like 2 days. And so it's just like at that point, when you had bought, like, I had already been buying Bitcoin, and so you're seeing this stuff happen, and then I was asking myself, because I wasn't on Bitcoin Twitter as much, and so I was asking myself, like, am I crazy right now? Like, am I, like, literally, am I crazy? My friends are making fun of me. My family probably thinks I'm insane for buying Bitcoin, uh, but everything makes sense to me. Like, I've done the work, I've done the research, and it all makes sense. So why is Bitcoin not at $1 million? Like, that's but
Yeah.
I just needed to, like, relax and take a chill pill, sit back, enjoy the cheap sats that I was able to buy, because one day we won't be able to buy cheap sats, like Bitcoin at 40,000. There's not a lot of people that can stack a full coin. So stack as much as you can, and hope that you can stack a full coin. If you're just starting to stack Bitcoin, you're starting to stack sats, and get to where you want to get to, hit your goal. If it's half a Bitcoin, a quarter of a Bitcoin, get that goal, then set a new goal, and just keep moving forward as we're getting this opportunity to stack cheap sats. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, yeah, very well said. And another thing that comes to mind is that in Bitcoin, like the narrative and the price can change from like one day to the next,
To the
literally.
next. Yes.
One of the examples was obviously the what was it, March 13th, 2020,
Yeah.
when COVID hit. We had a massive price drop from like what was it, like around 9K all the way down to sub 4K, like in one day. That was pretty scary. That was obviously induced by, broader economic things
Macro.
happening in
Yeah.
macroeconomic, something that can happen now if I'm looking honestly at the broader picture outside of Bitcoin. I think if you actually look at the price dropping now, you can actually see it's kind of correlated to the S&P 500. I mean, when there's a big shock in like the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones or the Nasdaq, Bitcoin goes down with it. I mean, at least that was the case, very often in the past. So there's some correlation there. But then on the interim and on the rebound, Bitcoin just destroys the performance of all the others. So yeah, sure, it could still go down maybe 50%, or who knows, right? Like what happens if like Putin does something weird, or so there's always that risk. At the same time, when like a Michael Saylor comes out, or when a Najib Bukele comes out, it's like these narrative changes, and we were kind of speculating on maybe Apple coming out and saying that they're integrating it to all their phones. I
Right.
mean, this kind of stuff is always hanging in the air. So uh, you don't know what's coming tomorrow. Can go up, can go down. That's not the interesting bit, because you got to hold on to it for like 10 years or longer, and then it's going to get really interesting. I mean, that's how I look at it. Maybe some people look at it to get rich in like within a year or 2 year. I mean, that stuff, I think that only induces people to start using leverage and take on too
Yeah.
many risks.
Yeah. And that's like the whole thing. I think Preston Pish said it in the conference. He said, buy Bitcoin for 5 years. No, buy Bitcoin and then go to sleep for 5 years is what he said. And that's like so true. It's like the overall Bitcoin fundamentals are crazy bullish. Because what happens when Apple says that they put Bitcoin on their balance sheet? What happens when Mexico says we made Bitcoin legal tender? Or what happens when Canada elects Pierre Poilievre as president, and now he's pro Bitcoin, and that's a G7 country. So those are the things that I think people, they look at a lot of the, oh well, the price and the chart is going this way, and in reality it's like the upside is exponential with Bitcoin, and maybe it's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but over the course of 10 years it's a lot of things are going to happen. And so that's why it's like, yeah, 100K is going to happen, a million is going to happen, but even saying that is putting a limit to what really is going to happen, which is it's going to go to infinity, because it's everything over 21 million. And so I think, just because you're early, that doesn't mean you're wrong. And I think that's like what I was trying to convey was, in those times when we were early, and we're still early right now. I think that's like the whole idea is we're early right now because the price is not reflecting how much Bitcoin should be selling for. And so if it's not reflecting how much Bitcoin should be selling for, or the goods and services that you can get for Bitcoin isn't reflected in the price, then we're still early. And that's what I think a lot of people don't realize is how early we are to Bitcoin. And there's information asymmetry. There's a lot of information that not a lot of people have. And the only people who have that information are those who've done the work. And when you do the work, you get the information, and you're early still. And you may feel like you're wrong, but you're not. And just wait those 5-10 years, and everything will play out exactly how we all think it will.
I'll add one more thing, and that's the halving, because a lot of people, especially the longer the halving is behind us, the more, or the less people talk about it. But
Yeah.
imagine this Bitcoin network just giving out, how much is it now, Sean? 6.6 and a quarter Bitcoin every 10
Yes.
minutes.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit of money, every 10 minutes, 6 and a quarter Bitcoin that it's just giving out. And yeah, nobody can change that. And it's just added to, and people can say, yeah, but we already know it's only going to be 21 million. Yeah, but that doesn't stop it from still giving out 6.2 0.25 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. And then soon, in about 2 years from now, it will just half.
Yeah.
And you can be like, all right, I know that's coming and I'm speculating on it, but the market really feels it when it gets cut in half, because all of a sudden now, from one day to the next, it's just half. And yeah, I still think that's a big driver behind the bull markets as well. I know people differ in their opinions there, but yeah.
What's crazy, I'm just thinking about this right now as you're saying this, is like everyone was speculating in 2021 we were going to go to 100,000 easy. Most people had a number around, Plan B had the stock to float like 288K, 300,000. And then it didn't even get close to that, I'm one to say that we're in the super cycle, and that just means that it looks totally different from here on out. But honestly, no one knows for sure. And I think I would say that we're probably going to see over 69,000, a new all-time high this year. But I don't know that. What would be insane is if we didn't see a new all-time high this year or next year, and then the 2024 halving comes, and then people are expecting these like smaller upticks after the halving because they're going, 2013 was high. Yeah, like a diminishing return. Exactly. Thank you. I was looking for that word. Yeah, they see diminishing returns from 2013, 2017, and 2021. And then if they're like, oh, well, now that in 2025, it's going to be way less. And I think what happens when everyone thinks it's going to be less, because everyone's thinking it was going to be more this time, what happens is everyone thinks it's going to be less. And that's when you have some people coming in, seeing the value proposition of Bitcoin. And then the thing just rockets unlike anything we've ever seen before. And that's like, I'm just saying there's anything is possible. We can't rule out any possibilities with Bitcoin. And that's why it's just something you don't want to trade, because we don't know what it'll do, when it'll do it. Will it go down a ton? Will it go up a ton? But over the long term, it's gonna go up. So I think it's just crazy to think about all the types of possibilities that could happen to price.
Yeah, it's I love it, man. It's like this open, free floating, absolutely free market, that trades 365 days a year, 24/7. And sure, there's manipulation going on. If you're a whale, right, and you can move the price with your massive bags, then they're going to try and do that, right? But until like a bigger whale comes along. I mean, there were some whales in the past that, then all of a sudden, like Wall Street or a guy like Michael Saylor comes and just keeps on buying when they're trying to like dump the market,
Right.
Even whales get wrecked, right? I mean, imagine if you're like a billionaire. Then what's your strategy? Because you're not the only billionaire trying to like make a move on Bitcoin. You've got competition too. People always think it's like even the bigger Bitcoin gets, it's global. I mean, if you've got billionaires in China, you've got billionaires in the US, billionaires in Europe, they're all competing all the same. It can be like Jeff Bezos trying to outsmart Bill Gates, or trying to outsmart Zuckerberg. I mean, they all must be watching this as well. So you have no idea what they're doing in the background, and they could be considered whales, right? If Elon Musk decides to put like 1% or 10% of his net worth into Bitcoin, we're going to feel it. That's how early we are, because as we progress with this thing, and if Bitcoin does what it's supposed to do, then even their influence will diminish over time. So we're early. That's why it's volatile. Don't worry about the price sinking under 40K. This is an amazing opportunity. You're going to look back on this. You're going to be like, oh my God, I was getting nervous then. I should have been buying then. That's always what I think when the prices drop, like with red candles after one another. It's like, ooh, get greedy, dude. Like, start buying, and don't worry about it.
Exactly.
This is not financial advice. Yes, it is.
You nailed it on the head. You nailed it right on the head. And with that, I think that's wraps everything up for Bitcoiner's Guide, episode 7. Just a reminder, this Thursday, we go live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time with World of Rusty. He's the guy that makes, the best Bitcoin artwork behind the scenes. Do not miss this episode. It's going to be amazing. Also, remember, what you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, don't just let it stay here. Share, like, subscribe if you found something entertaining, if you found it helpful. Please help us out. And as for Bitcoiner's Guide, episode 7, from Playing Marcus and Big Sean, we're over and out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging out. See you next week. Yo.
The Fed, can they engineer a soft landing? Whether they do 4 hikes, 7 hikes, 10 hikes, I don't think that's really going to materially slow inflation, unfortunately.
It looks like Bitcoin's winning.